Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
What is going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Anthony Rivardo for another episode of Big Apple Blitz, a recap of a fun round one. Anthony, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, man. My mock draft prediction turned out to be true. I said that I thought the New York Giants were going to take Malik Nabers at number 6 overall. I thought that they were going to try their hardest to trade up. Sounds like they did. They were really, really trying to move up to number 3 for Drake May, and that would have been a dream come true for me. But outside of Drake May, this was my consolation prize I was hoping for. I wanted Malik Nabers on the New York Giants, and I got what I wanted, so I am happy today.
There you go. As you should be, the New York Giants lands a playmaker, and a little bit of a surprise from the New York Jets with Olu Fashanu as the pick. They trade down. We'll get into the trade down. We'll get into how the board kind of fell. It felt a little chalky the first, five picks probably, right? Caleb, Daniels, May, Harrison, Alt off the board. Were you surprised? We'll go in chronological. So we'll start with the Giants. Were you surprised that they went with the wide receiver and Malik Nabers over JJ McCarthy?
I was, but I wasn't. I felt like the Giants were going to go Drake May or nobody. That seemed to be the reports were indicating that that's how they felt. It was Drake May or bust. And so once they lost out on Drake May and the New England Patriots officially took him at number 3 overall, I assumed that they were going to go ahead and take the best playmaker available. And then it just became a question of which playmaker do the Giants like best, because I thought that it was Malik Nabers because I thought he was the best playmaker available, but there were plenty of reports about how the Giants prefer Rome Odunze and really like his work ethic and have been viewing him very highly throughout the pre-draft process. So that became the big question for me, was which playmaker. And for JJ McCarthy, I would have liked him to be the pick at number 6. As I've said, I do believe in him, and I think he's going to be a good professional quarterback. But if the Giants aren't in love with a quarterback, then they shouldn't force a quarterback. So I'm glad that they didn't do that, because clearly they weren't in love with him. If they were, they would have taken him at number 6. But I hate when a team forces a quarterback. That's how you put yourself in a hole. That's how you put yourself in a Daniel Jones situation, the one that the Giants are currently trapped in. So I'm glad that they didn't put themselves into another sticky situation by forcing a quarterback that they weren't in love with.
Absolutely. Now we have both of our reactions for our team's pick. So I think we roll the reaction and then kind of get into the context leading up to the pick and a little bit more in detail after. So let's do Anthony first with the Malik Nabers selection.
Boom. Malik Nabers, baby. That was my selection. That was my predicted pick. This is what I wanted if the Giants were able to get Malik Nabers at number 6. I'm happy about this, guys. How are you feeling? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. This is who I wanted. Oh, let me throw this New Jersey on. Here's my Malik Nabers jersey. How do we feel, guys? Let's go. Let's go.
So is that league official, that Malik Nabers jersey?
Yeah, so I actually knew the pick was in about 2 weeks ago. I was in contact with Brian Dable. He let me know early, and they sent me an official Nabers jersey.
I love it. That was my favorite part of your reaction. You pull up the obviously altered Daniel Jones jersey and rocking the number. So is DJ giving up number 8? How's this going to work?
No, I doubt it. I think number 88 would be pretty cool for Malik Nabers. If I had to guess, that's a classic wide receiver number. A lot of Giants players have had success in 88, so I'm hoping that's the way it goes. But yeah, there were some friends of mine who saw my reaction and told me that it seemed like I was a little bit dead inside. Like I was excited but sad at the same time. And I think rewatching it just now on the stream, I see what they're talking about. You could definitely see there was a hint of disappointment in me because we didn't get a quarterback.
Yeah. So, all right, give it to me. Leading up to before, like, obviously we find out that it's Malik Nabers. When the graphic comes up, the pick is in. Are you thinking that it's going to be JJ, or did you think it was going to be wide receiver?
I really thought that it was going to be Malik Neighbors. That's why in all my mock drafts, I didn't have the Giants taking JJ McCarthy. I always had them taking Malik Neighbors. On my Fireside Giants mock draft and any that I wrote in recent articles for Empire Sports Media, I've just been going Neighbors at 6 because it just felt like that's where the Giants wanted to go. Take the big playmaker, get the weapon for Daniel Jones, and hope to figure it out then. And listen, when the rumors were swirling yesterday all day long, it sounded like the Giants were deep in conversations with the Patriots. My hopes got high. I was really, really excited. And if you thought my reaction was kind of fun in the video that you just rolled, in the alternate timeline where the Giants actually pull off that trade and get Drake May at number 3, my reaction would have been an all-timer. So just a more tamed reaction with Malik Neighbors because it was more expected and still exciting, but yeah, not exactly landing the franchise quarterback exciting.
I'm gonna be honest with you. When New England was on the clock while we were watching the stream, I'm like, I'm waiting for that Giants logo to flash up on the screen. I was waiting for it, and then once you saw the pick is in, it's like, oh man, they're really gonna stick and take their guy, Drake May there. So that one, unfortunate for Giants fans who wanted to go up and get the quarterback. 3 quarterbacks go off the board, but I mean, as we've stated here, Malik Neighbors is a hell of a consolation prize. I get it. Like, we have Finnegan's flight crew in here says who's throwing to Neighbors. That's probably a fair question right now, but it doesn't matter. You still have an elite weapon that whoever's playing quarterback this year for you is going to be able to use. And then your next young guy is obviously going to be able to utilize a weapon. And the Giants, like, they desperately needed a wide receiver. So I can't kill them for that pick.
No, I can't kill them for it either. Like, it is a good selection. Objectively, I think that they got the best player on the board, regardless of position. That's my opinion. And they needed a playmaker. Like, after losing Saquon Barkley, I know it's a different position, running back versus wide receiver, but just touchdown scorers, guys who put up yardage, guys who make plays. The Giants don't really have one. They don't have anybody. Now they do with Malik Neighbors, but prior to drafting Malik Neighbors, they didn't have anybody that defenses needed to game plan for. So getting in a guy that causes defenses to shift their game plan and focus in on a specific player and make sure he doesn't beat you, that was important. Now you just have to hope that eventually, hopefully next year, the New York Giants can land their future franchise quarterback.
Well, Motivated T chimes in and says the Giants should draft Rattler, assuming that would be today on day 2 in the 2nd or 3rd round. Is that a route you would like to see them go, or are you kind of just foregoing quarterback at this point and you figure that out next year?
Yeah, personally, I don't want to see the Giants take Rattler because then I think they're going to get stuck next year in this mode where you got to keep giving Rattler a chance and they don't want to move on from him. I'd rather they just punt on a quarterback this year, go all in next year. I think that's the way they need to go. And listen, I think Rattler's a good player, but I think he's a project. I don't see the upside necessarily that others do. I'm not in favor of taking a quarterback on day 2.
It'd kind of be similar to the Falcons and Desmond Ritter, what they did a couple years ago, where they took him. He was a 2nd round pick, right? I believe in that draft.
I think he was in the 3rd.
Okay, so moral of the story: day 2 quarterback. They end up like, okay, we'll give him another chance to start in 2022, and then it goes completely off the rails. I know, slightly off topic, but Michael Penix to Atlanta, that's got to be the biggest surprise in round 1, right?
Oh yeah, that was shocking to me, and I guess that any of the smoke that we heard about him going inside the top 10, potentially 6 to the Giants, there must have been a little bit fire there because, I really thought that he was going to be a late 1st round pick. Man, we were all off on that. Top 10 selection for him. I think that's a crazy pick. He's like almost 25. He's not going to see the field until he's pushing 30, but whatever. More power to Atlanta for that one.
Yeah, and Atlanta with some weird drafts over the last few years, man. They take Bijan crazy high, the running back, the old adage, don't take the running back high. They take Kyle Pitts really high, and then they pay, $180 million to Kirk Cousins, and then a month and a half later, draft a quarterback in the top 10. Just strange asset management from Atlanta on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So anyway, but closing out on just overall 1st round and just Giants at this point, then we could maybe in the second half of the show get into what both these teams should do or look for today. What's been the overall reaction from Giants fans? Are they happy with Malik Neighbors, or is it, man, I really wish that they took JJ McCarthy or found a way to trade up? What's the pulse today?
I think everybody is happy with Malik Neighbors, but everybody is also disappointed that we didn't get a quarterback. So it's just mixed feelings, and that's kind of how I feel as well. It's like, as much as I love Neighbors, and I've been clear on the show, I thought that he was WR1 in this class. I did prefer him to Marvin Harrison Jr. So for me, I think this is an excellent value selection for the New York Giants to get him at number 6. Arguably the best player in the draft class, regardless of position. You could really make such an argument for Neighbors, but it's not a quarterback. Like, the Giants still don't have a future. So as exciting as this is, there is a level of disappointment. There is a level of fear for the future now amongst New York Giants fans. And while I want to keep faith and hope that Joe Shane's able to figure it out, get it right, find a quarterback down the road, it's just going to become far more difficult now. You don't know if you're going to be picking in the top 10 next year. In fact, having a guy like Neighbors and Brian Burns, the talent that the Giants added, I would almost bet that they won't be picking in the top 10 next year. So getting a quarterback, they're going to be stuck the same way that they were this year, where they're not in a range of one. They're going to have to negotiate trades. Maybe those fall through. This cycle could just be repeated over and over. They had a chance, I believe, to end this cycle, get that quarterback, and then move forward and build the team around him. Now finding that last piece or that first piece, however you view the quarterback, is just going to be that much more difficult.
There we go. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there, probably in the 2025 class, but we'll see. Again, in the second half of the show, we'll get into what both these teams should do today. Want to get to the New York Jets, and I'm just going to give you a warning for this reaction video we're about to play, Anthony. There's a lot of Easter eggs. So hopefully you find it as entertaining as I did, because it's with the crowd cam gets very interesting. So we'll roll it and we'll talk through Olu Fashanu being a New York Jet.
It's O-line, by the way. I know it. I know it in my soul. Come on. Turn the crowd. You got the crowd. Offensive line! Olu! Left tackle! Left tackle! Let's go! A left tackle! That's who we want. That's who we want. That's who we want. Okay. Let's go. We're high-fiving. The main event is pumped up. The Bauer boys are crying. The Bauer boys are crying.
So there we go. People were pumped up at the main event. We had the flashers belly bop, the lighting up the cigar inside like it's 1975. And then I had to get my shot in at the Bauer boys because they've been insufferable for 3 months. So yeah, a lot of emotion but at the end of the day, honestly, I was surprised that it was Olu Fashanu. Not crazy surprised that they went offensive line, but their usual preference on the offensive line kind of usually skews to a Talisi Fuanga or Troy Fautanu, who it feels like we've talked about at length for the last few months.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprising selection for me as well. Of course, with Bowers, as you mentioned, the Bowers boys shot there. I thought that would end up being the pick, but Fashanu, can't complain. Great offensive tackle, pass protector. This is a guy who should be a long-term starter for the New York Jets. It was the surprising pick, but I think ultimately the right pick. If you want to kind of go back through the pre-draft process, at one point, there were some people who had this guy ahead of Joe Alt and thought that he would be the first tackle taken and thought that he was going to be a top 10 pick. His draft stock kind of changed throughout the whole pre-draft process. The narrative kind of shifted, and he moved it to becoming this 10 to 20 range pick, maybe even outside of the top 20, but ultimately taking him there. I guess it was at number 11 after trading down the one spot with Minnesota. I think it's a great value selection, and I think that Olu Fashanu is a really good player.
Yeah, I think so too. In my opinion, the best pass protector in this draft class, and a pure left tackle, which that's not necessarily what Fautanu or Fuanga project at the next level. They may play guard. Fuanga might play on the right side of the offensive line, but Olu played 3 years of left tackle at Penn State, didn't allow a sack, only one quarterback hit. There's some work to be done in the run game as a run blocker, but Man, I mean, for a 21-year-old learning from Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, I think like just eat up as much information as you possibly can from both those guys.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There are a lot of veterans on that Jets offensive line that could definitely serve as mentors to Fashanu. And, not even that he really needs all that mentorship, because when you watch him play, he's very technically sound already. He's got a very great base underneath him with his quick feet and his kind of technical ability in pass protection. So I guess it'll be more so mentoring his mindset into the NFL level. But he is a player that I thought had a very polished skill set and could be an instant contributor, which is why you kind of mentioned Fatanu as being maybe the other option that we discuss a lot on the show. I thought they would go that direction because maybe that's a guy that you're more comfortable sitting and moving around the offensive line. Fashanu almost feels like a guy that you want to get on the field immediately. So that's one of my kind of mysterious takeaways from the selection is, do they plan on getting him out on the field as a rookie, or maybe just in case of injury? I'm curious to see how it all ends up shaping out for Fashanu.
Yeah, and with this pick, there are a portion of Jet fans, the Bauer boys, who really wanted Brock Bowers, who goes 13 to the Raiders, and just the crowd that wanted a weapon, and totally understand that direction and that mindset. The Jets, I think, again, more on this in the second half of the show, they're going to be active, I think, today for a wide receiver. But when you look at it, Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015. Morgan Moses is 33 years old and is coming off a torn pec. Olu's going to get on the field. This is not someone who is going to be like, hey, he was taken 11 overall and he's not going to play at all. Like, you're starting 5 on the offensive line. One, it's very rare that they all stay healthy anyway. But when you have 2 tackles with legitimate injury concerns who are both on the final year of their contract, I don't get the outrage for taking a tackle that's going to help you, one, in the short term depth wise, but then also long term filling in as your left tackle of the future.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, it's so important to have a left tackle locked down. I know as a New York Giants fan that was just an endless void for this team for many years until Andrew Thomas stepped in. And hopefully for the Jets, this is their Andrew Thomas selection. Now you have an offensive tackle that you just know is going to be ready and available and play at a high level week in and week out. And you should never kind of underestimate how important that is. Again, watching the Giants offensive line be so bad for so many years, now I've seen a new appreciation of the game and the way that the Giants are able to scheme around Andrew Thomas. Like, we'll see plays, of course, teams run plays for certain playmakers, like they're trying to get the ball in space to a receiver. The Giants do that with Andrew Thomas because he's that good. Like, they will run plays where he's just 15 yards down the field blocking, and it was completely intentionally made because they trust him to execute on a play like that. So you can actually change your offense and do so much with a good left tackle that protects your blind side and gets downfield with athleticism. So I think that that's almost an underrated talking point for the Jets, that not only does this give you that long-term solution, but also this can become almost a playmaker for you in a way, like a guy that you could scheme your offense around.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, I know he's not, his strength isn't as a run blocker yet at this point in his career, but this not only helps Aaron Rodgers stay upright theoretically, but I think eventually it helps Breece Hall, who is going to be a major focal point of this offense, both as a rusher and as a pass catcher. Like, there was a stretch last year where he really struggled, and sure, part of it I'm sure was, coming back from the ACL, but the offensive line was also decimated. So if they have, much stronger depth, and you're not going to these no-name guys who are borderline practice squad players, you might have half a chance of, being able to continue to run the football and protect the quarterback and have some plays develop down the field.
Exactly. And I think that after seeing Aaron Rodgers go down after 4 plays, and half of that you could blame on the offensive line not being able to pass protect him properly, and seeing the struggles of the offensive line throughout the season, I think that, you got to be excited about this. This is a nitpick if you're complaining about taking one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class, in my opinion.
Red John says, Matt, you should be asleep. I did. This is draft weekend. We don't sleep draft weekend. I think I got, so after the party, came back, recorded my reaction. That went live a little before 2 a.m. So it was a late night last night, but I'm sure you were in the same boat. How late were you going last night, Anthony?
Actually not as late as I thought I would be. The 3-hour live stream that I did, since the majority of it was solo, my social battery was absolutely drained. So pretty much as soon as I ended that stream, I put down some pasta and then I put myself down.
There we go. That feels very on brand, but I like it. Good stuff. Wanted to pull up before we get into really like what both these teams should do today now, because that's kind of where the conversation goes. I wanted to pull up and take a look at the rest of the first round and ask you what some of the biggest surprises were, or what just your thoughts on the rest of the round outside of the Giants and Jets.
Yeah, one of my biggest surprises was the lack of cornerback talent coming off of the board. We finally got a few towards the end. You got Quinyon Mitchell at 22 to the Eagles, which, scary enough as it is. Of course, the best defensive player arguably just falls into the Eagles' lap. It seems to always happen. Terrion Arnold at 24 to the Lions, and Nate Wiggins at 30 to the Ravens. But other than that, no Cooper DeJean, which was a shocker to me. I thought somehow he would go in the first round because of the talent that he had. I know a lot of boards had him as a top 10 player. So even though the injury and there were question marks, I still thought he would be a first-round draft pick. But going into the second rounds now, DeJean's there, Kool-Aid McKinstry's there, cornerbacks are there. They fell down the board, and that's huge for the New York Giants because I think that cornerback is probably going to be their primary target going into this second round. So now with all this talent pushed down the board, I wonder maybe they try and trade up and grab somebody. Maybe someone does fall into their lap. But cornerbacks coming off of the board was shocking. How many quarterbacks and offensive linemen came off the board wasn't shocking, but still shocking in a way. Like we knew it was going to be a high number, but it was absurdly high. And then one of the most surprising selections that not a bunch of people are talking about, Chop Robinson, 21 to the Miami Dolphins, feels like an absolute reach to me. Disappointed in that selection because I do like the Dolphins, being that I live in South Florida. I like them a little bit, and I think that was a poor selection.
There you go. Yeah, the Dolphins the position didn't surprise me because of the injuries to Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb towards the end of the year. So I get why they went edge, but Chop at 21, that felt like maybe a back half, like last couple picks in the first round. Almost nailed. Remember, we were laughing yesterday that I had 10 offensive linemen in the first round, but 9 went kind of close. And no JPJ. Barton went. But who was it? Yeah, I guess JPJ was the only other one that I had. And Jordan Morgan at 25 was a little surprising. I thought that'd be the Cooper DeJean spot to the Packers.
Too. Yeah, one of my close buddies is a Packers fan. He was livid. He was texting me. He's like, what the F? What's going on? Why not DeJean? He fell to us. He was right there. So I think that's going to be the prize pick for a lot of fan bases. A lot of fans are going to be hoping that their teams maybe move up for DeJean today. One other player that I want to shout out, Xavier Legette going in the first round made my heart happy. I absolutely love the kid. His story is excellent. He is, in my opinion, the 4th best wide receiver in this draft class. I had him ranked higher than a lot of these other guys. So seeing him go 32, really awesome. A little disappointed, though, that it is to the Panthers because I'm worried that they might ruin his career since that team is just so freaking bad. But yeah, I'm happy that Xavier Legette was a first-round draft pick. That was awesome.
How about Ricky Pearsall? Pretty Ricky, 31 off the board. I like him a lot too. I thought, maybe somewhere in the 40s, but the 49ers fans, I thought, were very surprised with that selection.
It's surprising, but if you're keeping up with the rumor mill, one of those wide receivers playing for San Francisco right now is probably going to get traded. Whether you're talking Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, both of them have been brought up in trade discussions. I think one of them is on their way out. I think it's going to be Deebo at this point because Ricky Pearsall, former teammate of Brandon Ayuk. I think that there's that connection there might motivate them to keep Ayuk and keep him happy. So, but yeah, I was surprised to see him go at 31. That's a guy that I was like, maybe at 47 for the Giants if they go quarterback in the first round. So seeing him go this early was surprising, but the talent is absolutely there. Pearsall is a great player, and I'm sure that Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers are going to make him into an absolute stud.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to go to the chat. Cuca Lake chimes in and says, love hearing how much of a B Sal Licata is on WFAN. All he does is yell and complain. He said the Neighbors pick was awful for the Giants. Awful seems like a major stretch, Anthony. I know you could prefer quarterback, but awful and Malik Neighbors should never be mentioned in the same sentence.
Right. Malik Neighbors is just an absolutely phenomenal playmaker. So, yeah, you can't go awful on that one. And, I mean, the quarterback Would have been a nice pick, but again, if the Giants weren't in love with the QB, you can't force it. And so, no, it's definitely not awful. It might be disappointing if you really wanted a QB, but no way you can call Malik Neighbors awful.
So, as you mentioned, still some really talented names. Jerzon Newton didn't go off the board, a defensive lineman out of Illinois. I thought was surprising. Cooper DeJean, Jackson Powers Johnson, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Troy Franklin, Zach Frazier. Well, I guess that kind of opens up the question. What's your expectations for the Giants, who have a second round pick? They have a third also. I don't have their picks up in front of me.
Yeah, they have pick number 70 in the third.
Okay, there you go. So they have 2 picks as of right now today. What would be your expectation, positions to look for, players to watch for, stuff like that?
Yeah, positions to expect: cornerback, defensive line, and I'll throw out offensive guard. I think there's a slight chance that they go that route, but I think that and quarterback. I think that there is a chance they go with Rattler, which again I'll be pretty disappointed in. But corner, quarter, defensive line, and players in particular to watch for. I'm going to say Max Melton out of Rutgers, the cornerback, makes a lot of sense for them. And I think that Chris Jenkins, the defensive lineman out of Michigan, also makes a ton of sense for them. Either one of those players I'd be super happy with. And the last kind of prediction, I guess is a bold prediction. I never really see anybody talk about this for the Giants. Trade down in the second round. They only have 6 picks in this year's draft, now just 1, of course, after selecting Neighbors in the first. So I think that they need to move down and add some extra draft capital in those later rounds, build out this roster, and maybe even try and get some additional draft capital in 2025 just to give you more ammunition if you do need to move up for a quarterback. So trading down at 47, maybe you go down to about 57 or 60. I think you still land a high-quality player, maybe even a potential starter there, but that would be a move that I could see the Giants making.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good point. You always bring up how they don't have a ton of picks in this class, and it could also give you more ammunition down the line. It's a deep class. There's a lot of guys still available right now, a lot of big names. On the Jets side of things, I'm going to call my shot now. They are trading up today for a wide receiver. I think that with how they handled the trade down with Minnesota, they got another 4th-round pick and a 5th-round pick in the process. So they turned pick 10, and the pick they got for, shout out Zach Wilson, pick 203, they flipped that into a pick 129 in the 4th round and 157 in the 5th round. I think they're going to package some picks together today and move up for a wide receiver at some point. There's still a ton of names. A.D. Mitchell is still available today. I know there's some question marks with maybe his character, but Troy Franklin, Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson. I think after the trade down, you're in a good spot to get aggressive and move up, because right now the Jets have 7 more picks in the draft. I'd be stunned if they pick 8 guys in this draft.
No, I agree with you. I think that's a really nice prediction. And I think I saw somebody in the chat, R&R, if you want to click on that one, said maybe instead of moving up in the draft, maybe they trade for Deebo Samuel, who we were just discussing as being a player on the trade block from the San Francisco 49ers. I guess that could be a possibility as well. But I do agree with you. I don't think the Jets are going to make all of those picks. They're going to move around, probably up the board. And looking at the wide receivers right now, I've got it listed who's available. There is a lot of talent still on the board. Even Javon Baker out of UCF, Keon Coleman out of Florida State, Jalen Polk out of Washington. The list really does go on and on here. So if you're looking for a wide receiver on day 2, you got to be aggressive. They're probably going to fly off the board quickly, and I think the Jets are going to make the move to go ahead and get one.
Yeah, and we saw a couple at the end of the first round. The run started again. As we mentioned at the top of the second round, like Buffalo's in the market for a receiver, New England's in the market for a receiver. There's a lot of teams early on that could go with the wide receiver. So I'm hoping the Jets trade up. I don't want them to just stick and wait around until 72. There's a chance that there's going to be someone there that you like, but again, this team doesn't need to make 3 selections in the 4th round. Package some together and move up. Cuca Lake with the absolute disrespect on the Ray-Ban says, Matt, will you wear better glasses today so you don't look older than Bean? I don't know how I recover from that. That's a tough one, Anthony.
Yeah, I don't know what to say there. That's brutal.
Yeah, tough look. I'm a Ray-Bans fan, I guess. What can I say? I look it never goes. It's not supposed to go out of style, but Kuka Lake, not a fan. Oh well. Well, you can't please everybody. Outside of I'll give you a couple positions outside of receiver, even though I think that's probably the way that they go. Interior defensive line and safety are going to go off the board to the Jets, I think, earlier than what a lot of people are anticipating. I know at interior defensive line, you look at the depth chart and you go, oh, you have Quinnen Williams, you pay Javon Kinlaw, nice contract, Solomon Thomas, Leaky Fotu, but nobody outside of Quinnen Williams is signed in 2025. I'm not really the biggest Javon Kinlaw fan. If he stays healthy, great, but that's something he hasn't really done a whole lot in his career. And I think they could use another like run stopping defensive lineman. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if they don't move up for a receiver. My next guess would be some sort of interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, I think that's a good call because there are a lot of great defensive linemen available today. Even if you want to go deeper into like the third round, I think you can find some solid talent, which is usually the case on the defensive line. There are usually starters that you find on day 2, which is why I think both the Giants and the Jets need to prioritize that position. So that's a sneaky one. And I like that you mentioned safety as well. This isn't the best safety class this year. There weren't really any great standout players, but I think that there is going to be some talent found on day 2. And I am curious now that you're mentioning it with the Jets potentially trading up, of course, presumably for a wide receiver. I wonder if maybe a team moves up for Jarzon Newton. Surprising that he fell out of the first round. Maybe he could be a player that the Jets or someone else moves up for.
Yeah, I'm trying to look right now at the top of the second round and see like if there's a team that really makes maybe Arizona at 35. They could probably use another interior player, I would think. But like, I don't know, a lot of these like Buffalo and New England who start off round 2, gotta think they're going to go wide receiver.
No, definitely. I think the Bills are easily taking a wideout unless they decide to trade down again, but I can't imagine that's the case. I just wonder which wideout it's going to be because obviously everybody expected AD Mitchell to go by now and be that selection, but maybe he continues to fall and maybe Ladd McConkey could be the pick for the Bills. I'm not sure. It's going to be really interesting to see how they kick off the second round.
This is a good call out from Kuka Lake and has nothing to do with the glasses, but he says, you think Philly and the Jets make a deal for 53 since the Eagles don't have a third? Good call out that the Eagles have 2 second round picks in this draft at 50 and 53. Then they don't pick again until 120. We always talk about the past relationships. Joe Douglas comes from the Philadelphia Eagles. You think Howie Roseman is trying to move back with one of those 2 picks?
I could see it, but I could also see the Eagles being aggressive with those picks and maybe moving up in some way. So, you really can't predict what Howie's going to do. Somehow, some way, though, I'm sure he's going to get super lucky and some phenomenal players just going to fall into his lap like it happened last night. So,
yep, probably the best corner. They didn't even have to trade up for the best corner, which is just shocking. But Philly's going to do Philly things. They're in a win now window. So while I understand what you're saying, and that's a good call out to look at a team that has 2 seconds and not a third and be like, hey, is this maybe a spot where you can move up? I think they're going to be aggressive and they have a better chance of hitting in the top 53 than they do to moving back to 72 and gaining more picks. So it's possible, but I don't know if I would look at them. Honestly, maybe Green Bay. They have 41 and 58. So I feel like that's a team maybe where if you can get into the very late portions of round 2. I don't know. Is there a team that you're looking at where you think, okay, that's the trade out spot?
Not necessarily. It's so hard to predict those things on day 2 in my eyes, just because, a lot of those players or a lot of those teams are kind of sticking and picking. It usually is how it feels for me on day 2. And then it's always just the most random trades that you see. That's how I always feel about the second day of the draft. It's usually more this player is falling too far. Now we actually have to move up. But hey, man, maybe the Jets and the Giants get a deal done. I'm not sure if the Giants want to trade down that far. I would assume that they would want to stick in the second round if they do trade down. But like I said, I think the Giants are keen on adding additional draft capital. Maybe they could be a team that is enticed to move down and take some extra picks in the later rounds.
Now, what if the Jets go, F it, we don't care about our 2025 second round pick, and it's like some later pick this year and a second round pick in 2025. Would you be interested in something like that for the Giants?
I would be, and I think the Giants would be interested as well, again, because of the fact that they didn't get their quarterback this year. So I think there's a chance that if they do decide to move down at 47, they might say, okay, we can be enticed to do so, but we need additional draft capital for the future so that we can get our quarterback next offseason. And so I think that would be a potential offer that Joe Schoen would have to consider pretty heavily.
Fears Grim says the Colts at 45 is tempting too. If they're going to trade up in the second round, I don't know if they're going to be able to get up that high unless they are offering, like I said, a second round pick next year. If they just wanted to package like round 3 and 2 of your 4th round picks, that would probably get you to like where Houston is at 59, which is the end of the second round. But to get like 13 picks higher, I think you're going to have to be more aggressive than that.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. I think that you could see some teams maybe where did Baltimore go? Baltimore went corner. I know that they want to go tackle, so maybe not them. Maybe Miami at 55. I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's kind of hard to pinpoint who might be willing to trade down. You'd have to find some other teams. I think the Packers, that was a good call out with them needing some extra picks. So I guess we'll see what happens, but it's kind of tough to project who's actually going to be willing to move down in the second round.
Yeah, and this is so cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's really dependent on how the board is falling too. Like that plays a big factor on who's looking to trade up, who's willing to move down. So there's going to be a lot of movement today. There was yesterday, but kind of hard to predict this far out.
No, definitely. And like I said, I think the Giants are a sneaky team that might try to trade down. So keep an eye on them. I would love to see them make a move and move down the board just a few spots, gain an extra late round pick on day 3 just to get some depth on this team. But maybe the Jets will be the exact opposite of that. Maybe they'll be moving up and being aggressive. So I think it'll be a little bit fun to watch for our New York teams.
Absolutely. Now, are you back on Fireside Giants tonight live streaming, or are you just kind of watching and taking it easy tonight?
I haven't decided, to be completely honest. I got to see, because my co-host, his wife delivered the baby last night. So he wants to come on. Yeah, he wants to come on at some point today and do a reaction video if he has time. But that's to be determined. And then obviously I'll be live streaming solo unless I find somebody else to join me. But I don't know if I could go solo again. That's pretty tough. So it'll be a game time decision.
Game time decision, rounds 2 and 3. That's a much longer stream also than just 32 picks in the first round. Well, I'll be back on with the Talking Jets crew. I believe 7:00 start tonight, so I believe it's 6 or 6:30 we're going to go live. So make sure to check that out. But yeah, I'm sure a ton of Giants reaction. If you're a Giants fan in the chat wanting to find out everything that you need to know about the Giants picks, make sure to head over to Fireside Giants. And for anything New York Jets, head over to Talking Jets or Matt O'Leary NY, and we'll have you covered there.
Yes, sir.
Love it. Good stuff. We'll be back Monday to recap the whole thing. Any final predictions before we get out of here for this emergency podcast? How about that?
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Love that we were able to get this one done. But final predictions, I think the New York Giants will walk out of day 2 with a cornerback. Not a quarterback, but a cornerback. Going to add some help opposite of Deonte Banks, which is definitely a necessity for this team.
Absolutely. So my prediction, I said it earlier, but I think the Jets are trading up today. And I think the position they're targeting is a wide receiver. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Matt O'Leary. He is Anthony Rivardo, and we'll catch you guys next time.